Part 38. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Jeon. Chapter 371. Boom. The entrance door was knocked open and everyone rushed into the living room. A child who was playing with a toy seemed frightened. An old woman was sitting on the sofa calmly. Lin Xian waved his hand, indicating to the team members to take the child away. Wait for everyone to exit the room. Lin Xian sat next to the old woman and stared at her as if looking at some incredible creature. Why do you do this? What are you saying? The old woman looked at him blankly. Your son, daughter-in-law, and a woman. Lin Xian looked at her deeply. How could you do this? I didn't understand what you said. The old woman shook her head, still so calm and relaxed. That's awesome. Lin Xian stared at the old woman in disbelief. Discover your own micro-expression psychology, eye pupil observation and heartbeat monitoring. All failed. The eyes, expression, and heartbeat of the old woman in front of her were also normal. Mr. Qian also personally tested the old woman's mental state and found it to be normal. Everything shows that there is nothing wrong with the old woman. But Lin Xian just knew there was something wrong with her. No, she killed someone. There is still a question in my mind. 3 people, how many did she kill? The shoe prints at the 2 corpse dumping scenes and the murder scene were found to be her daughter-in-law's shoes. Since I came here to find you, you should know that everything can no longer be hidden. Lin Xian's tone gradually became cold. Are you sure you don't want to say anything? Whenever he classifies someone as a bad guy, it doesn't matter if the other person is male, female, old or young. Never show mercy. The old woman was silent for a long time, and then her voice became stern. Since you have found out everything, what else do you want to ask me? Stop pretending and show your cards. Lin Xian thought thoughtfully. You killed them all. That's right if you say so. The old woman looked at Lin Xian coldly, with a look of resentment on her face. Wrong. Lin Xian squinted. Everything you do needs to have a purpose. I have investigated and found that your son is very filial and treats you very well. You eat a lot of it, wear a lot of it, and give you hundreds of thousands of pocket money every year money. With a son like this, every parent would wake up laughing in their dreams. How could you kill him so cruelly? After all, they are your own flesh and blood. You watched them grow up, and you took care of them when they grew up. So, Lin Xian said word by word, are you taking revenge? The old woman's expression changed. Tears rolled down from his old eyes like broken beads. Grief and pain were etched deeply into her face. It was as if the whole world had collapsed. I see. Lin Xian frowned. You did find out that your son was dead. That's right. You haven't seen him for more than half a year, so you must be suspicious. And you also recognized that the person who called you was not your son, but the person who called you happened to be using your son's mobile phone. Did you find something unusual again in your son's home? Because I was in your son's home and found traces of you living there. You must have been looking for the reason for your son's disappearance at that time, right? Then, you discovered something was wrong with your daughter-in-law, and you also discovered another woman. Not only that, but you also found out that your daughter-in-law has an unclear and intimate relationship with another woman. It's strange. If they conspired to kill your son, they should have hidden it very deep. How did you find out? Wait a minute, your son is very rich and has hidden a lot of money, hundreds of millions, or more than $1 billion, right? The place where the money is hidden must be kept by someone, and this person must be a relative, right? So, you know where your son hides his money, and your daughter-in-law also knows, right? After all, the closest person in this world, apart from your parents, is your wife. Did you find that your daughter-in-law had touched the money? Not only had she touched it, she should have taken all the money away, right? My son disappeared, and my daughter-in-law also used the money, so you thought of the possibility of murdering someone for money. Lin Xian stared at the grief-stricken old woman. Right. Yes, they were the ones who killed my son. The old woman had a ferocious expression and screamed like a ghost. They thought they were doing it without anyone noticing, but they really thought that I, an old woman, didn't know anything. I even hired someone to check it for me. Not only was my son's company, they took over the magpie's nest, and even the money was transferred away by them. I also found them hanging out together at my son's house. How could I let these two bitches go? Let them all die, let them all die. Sudden. The old woman's body shook and she fell down. Lin Xian was stunned. Looking at the fallen old woman. He felt the old woman's breathing become shallow. Then, he stopped breathing. And the old woman's heartbeat was also rapidly weakening. Slowly, the heart stopped. Lu Changjiang, Lin Xian shouted. Lu Changjiang rushed in from outside and saw the old woman's appearance. His expression changed drastically. Give first aid. The chest beating and artificial respiration lasted for more than 20 minutes. Confirmed death. It's not poisoning, no trauma. Lu Changjiang had a strange expression. There is a high probability that there is a problem with the heart function. Lin Xian didn't say anything, still in a daze, looking at the old woman's body. The bodies of the three victims were also found, and the murderer was also found. But now, even the murderer is dead. Is the whole case over? That's right. No matter how you look at it, the case in front of you has been completely ended. The question is it really over? Lin Xian has a feeling. It seems that there is an invisible hand that brought the whole case to the police. This hand arranged everything and the whole process. It also arranged the victims, the murderer, and the whole plot. The police only need to check it carefully, and they will definitely find all the results. Of course, in order to worry about being seen as arranged in advance. This invisible hand deliberately increased the difficulty a little bit. It's like shooting a high-scoring brain-burning movie. Let the audience admire, satisfy, and think that the movie should be like this. However, all the audiences seem to have overlooked a problem. The victim is there, and the murderer is there. But there is still something missing. Where's your son's money? Lin Xian's face showed a hint of strangeness, and his eyes looked at the old woman's body again. That's a lot of money, it shouldn't disappear, right? He found that there was a person who wanted to humiliate his IQ. Not only did he want to humiliate him, he also wanted to step on him and spit on him. Ha ha. Lin Xian laughed and murmured, "Don't I want to save face? Don't worry, I will let you know what cruelty is. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet." Author, Kisiun. Chapter 372. Night, outside the community. The members of the special criminal case team were sitting on the curb, eating lunch boxes, drinking water, and smoking. Suddenly. "Boss, are you saying that what we see is fake?" Zhan Xiaoyang put down his lunch box, looked at Lin Xian with an expression that said, "I'm not well educated, so don't lie to me." "Yeah." Lin Xian continued to eat, mumbling, "Bring the evidence." Zhao Deshan stood up. He went to a business car not far away, carrying a large dumbbell. This dumbbell was found in the rental house of the victim Cao Xin. 10 kilograms. Pick it up. Lin Xian pointed at the dumbbell with chopsticks. That's it? Zhan Xiaoyang looked disdainful and picked up the dumbbell easily. It was only 20 kilograms, and a normal adult man could pick it up like playing. Swing it and make a gesture of hitting someone. Lin Xian put down his lunchbox and looked at him with a smile. Zhan Xiaoyang frowned and did as he was told. He lifted the dumbbell and swung it. Huh. I immediately realized something was wrong. I didn't feel anything when I lifted a 20 jin weight. But when the 20 jin weight is gathered into a piece of iron, it will be a little difficult to lift it with your chest flat, not to mention swinging it and hitting it. Although it can be done easily, I always feel that something is overlooked. The other party is a woman, and an elderly person. Lin Xian rolled his eyes. It's hard for her to hold a 20 jin dumbbell, let alone swing it, and accurately hit someone's head. Zhang Xiaoyang was stunned. Only then did he realize that Wang Meng and others were watching him with a smile. Damn! You all noticed this, am I the only one who didn't know? Zhang Xiaoyang began to doubt his life. This can't be blamed on him. He is the king in the computer field, and he is a younger brother in the field of criminal investigation. Not only Zhang Xiaoyang, but also a mastermind who designed this performance. Although smart, he is also a younger brother and doesn't understand criminal investigation. Because this person ignored the physical fitness of the elderly and ignored many details. The police who are engaged in criminal investigation are best at picking up details and finding clues. Lin Xian only gave a slight hint, and the old criminal investigators present knew that the case was wrong. The dumbbells were wrong. The old woman could not use them to kill people, and she did not have the physical strength. The disposal of the body was wrong. It was not that they looked down on women. It was possible to dismember and dispose of a body weighing more than 100 kilograms. Disposing the whole body at once, are you making us laugh? There was something wrong with the course of the case. The whole case seemed to have no loopholes on the surface, but in fact it was full of loopholes. The mastermind behind the scenes also overlooked a fatal point. He should not have used psychological induction. This ability is rare, just like hypnosis, and few people can do it. The most critical point. The victim LV Bo's money was gone. Don't look at the average income of 1 million on the internet. But in reality, a few thousand or even tens of thousands of yuan can induce people to commit crimes. If it is hundreds of millions or even billions. If you find that you have the opportunity to get this money, will you be tempted? Don't say you can't do it. As long as they are normal people, as long as they have the opportunity to get this money. 99% of people will be tempted, and are more likely to commit crimes because of it. Greed is always the biggest original sin in human nature. If this money appeared honestly, Lin Xian would suspect that there are other possibilities in this case. But this money disappeared. It also involves a master psychological inducer. Lin Xian can only think of one possibility. Murder for money. Jian Yunting, Cao Xian, the old woman, and the 5-year-old child. They are all tools to deceive the eyes of the police. The other party has been going for Lu Bo's money from beginning to end. The means of committing the crime are very skilled. This behind-the-scenes mastermind may have done this more than once or twice. It is very likely to deceive the eyes of some policemen. Lin Xian examined and doubted. The other party used psychological induction not only on the 5-year-old child. He also used psychological induction on Jian Yunting, Cao Xian, and the old woman. But even Qian Lao couldn't see it, and he couldn't tell the difference either. Is the most terrifying. Because you have no idea who has been psychologically induced. Boss, the cause of death has been found. Lu Changjiang called, it is confirmed to be abnormal cardiac arrest. Cardiac arrest refers to the sudden cessation of the heart's ejection function. This unexpected death is also called sudden death in medicine. Abnormal. Lin Xian held up the phone, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Although the old woman has some underlying diseases, the probability of causing cardiac arrest is too small. Lu Changjiang talked freely. Cardiac arrest is divided into 4 stages: prodromal stage, onset stage, cardiac arrest stage and death stage. It's not good to speak human language, Lin Xian interrupted his subordinate's popular science, say something I can understand. Lu Changjiang was embarrassed, What I mean is that there must be a reason for a person's sudden death. But the old woman's death can't find the reason, just died suddenly. Although this situation also happens in the hospital, it is not common. The most important point is that the old woman is very healthy. Very healthy, but dead? Lin Xian suddenly became alert. I thought of a possibility. Lin Xian ended the call and called Qian Lao's cell phone again, asking, Qian Lao, can psychological induction kill people and make the cause of death invisible? Qian Lao on the other end of the phone was silent. The other party's silence let Lin Xian know the answer. Yes. There's nothing strange about this. Hypnosis can kill people silently. And psychological induction is an ability that is infinitely close to hypnosis. I remember telling you before that we used hypnosis to do experiments. Qian Lao's words came from the receiver of the mobile phone. With a hint of heaviness, we have conducted a kind of deception on the human body, making humans mistakenly believe that they are in a different environment. For example, using hypnosis to make the subject mistakenly believe that they are in a sea of fire. The subject's body will show self-defense, which is the reaction of being in a sea of fire, sweating all over the body, and having a similar dehydration reaction. We also use hypnosis to make the subject mistakenly believe that they are in a glacier, and the subject's body temperature will drop rapidly, and the body will be a freezing reaction occurs. So what if a person's brain is mistakenly made to think that they are drowning? Mr. Qian asked in a deep voice, what do you think will happen? Holding your breath, struggling frantically, you may be suffocated to death, and it is even more likely to be choked to death by the air. Lin Xian's expression changed, and he said 4 words, hypnosis deception. Almost, it is a means of deceiving the brain and body. Mr. Qian sighed, hypnosis can kill people. Since hypnosis can, do you think psychological induction can? Putting down the phone, Lin Xian felt that this world was a bit scary. It can also be confirmed that the old woman was killed by psychological induction. Killing people to silence them and cut off all clues. Really no clues? Lin Xian's pupils flashed with sarcasm. No, the emergence of psychological induction is the biggest clue. Since psychological induction has been used on people, it must have appeared. How could it not leave traces? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun. Chapter 373. The case was re-investigated and returned to the starting point. Since Lin Xian suspected that the old woman's death was related to psychological induction, then the person who implemented psychological induction must have appeared. And he had long-term contact with these victims. Otherwise, psychological induction could not be completed. The team members began to investigate the people, things, daily life, and movement trajectories that the victims had contacted in the past. It only took half a day to get new clues. The old woman believed in Christianity. She would go to church for worship every Saturday and Sunday. At this time, Lin Xian was standing in front of a small church and looked around. Although the small church in front of him was not magnificent, the traces left by the years were clearly visible. Every place exuded the mystery and solemnity of religion. The spire of the church pointed directly to the sky, as if praying to the gods for protection and guidance. Lin Xian stepped in. There were many benches in the church. There were several well-dressed people sitting there with their heads down, praying. The soft light sprinkled on the exquisite carved chairs, adding a sense of sacredness and tranquility. Lin Xian's eyes were fixed on the man in the robe standing in front of him. He was a godfather, who was praying with his hands folded and eyes closed. His pious posture made people feel his awe of God and his firm belief. The priest's voice was low and magnetic, and he was reciting the Bible. After listening for a while, Lin Xian's face changed. because in his heart, he actually wanted to continue listening. His eyes moved. Lin Xian looked at the people sitting on the chairs. Surprised to find these people's expressions were so pious, and there was a fanatical light in their eyes. This expression reminded Lin Xian of a kind of person he had caught in his previous life. Some suspects who used pyramid schemes to commit crimes. That was a kind of piety and fanaticism that only came after being brainwashed. Something was wrong. Lin Xian's eyes looked at the priest again. Coincidentally, the priest also looked over at this time. His smile was warm and kind. It seemed to be able to dispel all the haze in people's hearts. Just the first impression can make people feel good. Lin Xian's eyelids twitched, and he walked over. Under the strange gazes of some people, he came to the priest. "I want to ask you a question." Lin Xian looked at the priest. "Do you know Zhang Hongtao?" Zhang Hongtao is the name of the murdered old woman. Zhang Hongtao. The priest was surprised and nodded. "I know her. She is a Christian here." Christians, meaning supporters of Christ, are also a group of believers. "Let me ask you another question." Lin Xian smiled. "Do you know she is dead?" The priest was stunned, and then followed with a puzzled expression. "Dead?" The pupils did not change, the expression was normal, and the heartbeat was very stable. "All very normal," Lin Xian laughed. "A believer died, you seem very calm." "This." The priest's expression was indeed indifferent, looking at Lin Xian. "Birth, aging, illness and death, isn't it normal?" "Yes, it's normal." Lin Xian looked at the priest deeply. "Goodbye." Turned and left, but only walked out 2 steps. His super hearing made him hear a deep exhalation behind him. It was as if someone was letting out a sigh of relief. Suddenly, Lin Xian turned around and stared at the priest, looking at his face and eyes. He found that the priest's eyes were very cold and his expression was very indifferent. It formed a contrast with his warm and friendly smile just now. This caught him off guard. The priest didn't even have time to change his expression. His expression at this moment froze on his face. "You are pretending to be so serious." Lin Xian walked back and stood in front of the priest. "To be honest, I was almost fooled by you." The priest was silent, and a gentle and warm smile appeared on his face again. He looked at Lin Xian in confusion. "What did I lie to you about?" Snap! Lin Xian grabbed his neck and walked out of the church. "What are you going to do?" Some people in the church stood up and glared at Lin Xian. "Police, don't move." Guo Su's scolding came from the door of the church. Everyone was stunned. Looking at Guo Su, who took out his gun at the door, everyone became honest. Lin Xian was observing their expressions and demeanor. He found that these people were not afraid of the police, but... Lin Xian looked at the priest who was grabbed by the neck by him, and was raising his hand. He made a quiet gesture to those people. Lin Xian felt more and more that something was wrong. But he didn't care about a group of ordinary people. He walked out of the church and carried the priest to a commercial vehicle. "Who killed Zhang Hongtao?" Lin Xian stared at the priest's eyes. "Kill?" The priest looked shocked. "She was killed by someone." The pupils, expression, heartbeat, all normal. Lin Xian was a little surprised. He found that his ability that was comparable to a lie detector in the past was ineffective again. Psychological induction. Lin Xian's expression was solemn. "I admit that you are indeed very powerful, but the problem is that the more you behave like this, people can't see the flaws, but it will make me more suspicious, understand?" Hearing the words psychological induction, the priest's expression finally changed a little. Not panic, but surprise. Surprised why Lin Xian knew about psychological induction. But the priest still looked very calm, without any fear. This is indeed the case. Lin Xian now has no evidence, not even a reason to arrest him. At most, the priest can be asked to cooperate with his investigation. Be confident. Do you think I don't have any evidence and can't do anything to you? Lin Xian smiled and said, since I found something abnormal about you, I will keep an eye on you 24 hours a day. I don't believe you people can hide it for a lifetime. By the way, are there anyone else behind you? Have you ever thought that when the police find your head, will the people behind you be worried that you betrayed them, and will they do something to you and your family? Also, can you guarantee that you will never make any mistakes in your life? Be careful, as long as you make the slightest mistake, I will come to you immediately. Lin Xian looked at the priest whose expression had changed drastically and smiled, you can go. The priest glanced at him, got out of the car, and walked towards the church. Are you trying to scare someone away? Wang Meng looked at his little brother, and other team members looked over. Yes. Lin Xian smiled and nodded, I want to see if some people are in a hurry. Fishing sometimes requires patience. If one has no patience, one cannot catch fish. If a fish is impatient and bites the hook, it deserves to be caught. Check this church first. Lin Xian put away his smile and said, I feel like these people don't look like a serious section. Wang Meng and others' scalps exploded. If it's not a serious religion, what else is there to teach? Cult. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun. Chapter 374. The team members began to investigate the church. Lin Xian stood outside the church, looking at the church casually. Until it gets dark, until the church closes, until many people leave. Lin Xian also saw the priest. Seeing him frown, watching him get into a car and leave. Wang Meng walked to Lin Xian with a cold face, the problem is huge. He was talking about the church. After investigation. This church is not as deserted and with few believers as people see. The opposite is true. This church has a very large number of believers, but they all practice religion at home. There will be dedicated believers who will go door to door to preach to other believers. This model is not like a formal church at all. On the contrary, as Lin Xian guessed, it was very similar to the way a cult spreads. It's all done in secret. How many are there? Lin Xian said in a relaxed tone. Still investigating. Wang Meng took out a cigarette, held it in his mouth, and handed another one to Lin Xian. The number of people found so far is over 100, and there may be more. So many. Lin Xian's eyes froze, there should be a big fish behind. Definitely. Wang Meng nodded, but we can't tell whether the case is related to the church. You continue to investigate. Lin Xian's voice became weaker and weaker, I was targeted, and the fish appeared. Wang Meng's expression remained unchanged, is it okay to be alone? Who are you looking down on? Lin Xian yawned. Ha ha. Wang Meng laughed, turned, and left. Lin Xian stood there and felt the eyes on him. That gaze came from the roadside not far away, from inside a car. 10 minutes later. Lin Xian walked to the roadside and stopped a taxi. The car monitoring him also followed the taxi. Followed for more than 20 minutes. During this process, Guo Su called and said that he was being targeted. Isn't it funny, someone actually stares at the tail of a soldier king? Wang Meng also sent a message. He was also being targeted. Awesome. Lin Xian smiled and murmured, are these people really crazy? They actually follow the police. And then one day, members of the Special Criminal Case Task Force, whoever appeared before, were all targeted. Something's wrong. Lin Xian's face gradually darkened, and he took out his mobile phone and called Zhao Qiang, Master, have you noticed that someone is following you recently? Huh. Zhao Qiang's words came from the mobile phone, if you didn't tell me, I really didn't care. Yes, I did feel like I was being followed recently. I thought it was an illusion. Lin Xian ended the call and his face turned cold. That's okay. All the police officers who investigated the family extermination case in front of them have been targeted. What are they going to do? Lin Xian had a bad feeling in his heart. Make another call. Zhou Lai's cell phone. Why are you thinking of calling me? Zhou Lai asked with a smile, miss you, brother. I don't have time to joke with you now. Lin Xian's voice was cold, lend me someone. Well. Zhou Lai's tone changed and he became nervous, what's going on? He knew only too well how terrifying Lin Xian was. Even this monster started shaking people. Isn't it scary? You think too much. Lin Xian could feel Zhou Lai's nervousness and said with a smile, it's no big deal. Just lend me a few people to protect some people secretly. I can't take care of them alone. Damn, I almost scared you to death. Zhou Lai exhaled a long breath, who are you protecting? Lin Xian named the team members and the people from the Criminal Investigation Brigade who came into contact with this case. Tell Zhou Lai the list. No problem. Zhou Lai smiled and said, it takes half an hour to arrive. Is it the kind of person who protects you secretly and doesn't show up? Yes, as long as there is no danger, your people don't need to show up. After Lin Xian finished his instructions, he put down his phone and breathed a sigh of relief. He never doubted his hunches and perceptions. Since I had a premonition that there would be a problem, I was definitely close to it. Does anyone really dare to attack the police? Hee. Why the death rate of frontline police officers is so high? Among them, 11% died in retaliation. Of the 10 police officers who died, 1 was killed in retaliation. There are also 67% of deaths caused by death in the line of duty during investigation. Lin Xian discovered. His alerting the snake not only frightened the snake. He must have stabbed the snake's nest. Why is the other party's reaction so big? Lin Xian's mind began to boil like boiling water. Review, analyze. The ideas are becoming clearer and clearer. Is it because of a cult? Lin Xian's eyes suddenly lit up. Is anyone afraid that the cult will be exposed? When this reasoning comes up, his brain started to think like a CPU running at high speed again. Everyone on Earth knows that if humans want to do something, they need money. Without money, it is difficult to move forward. Sometimes a cult is created, such as starting a company. The members are the employees. If you don't give me any benefits, who will do the work for you? The question is, what income does the cult make? The answer is ridiculous, no. Just like serious churches, they rely on donations and teaching fees from others to maintain their lives. The bigger the church, the more expensive it is. Priests have to work part-time as wedding hosts for others to make money. Who would give you a lot of money if they were a little bit normal? This is the case for all decent churches, and the cults have it even harder. Where does the money come from? Lin Xian suddenly thought of the case in front of him. Thinking of the huge sum of money that disappeared. Is it possible that the money was taken by the cult? Lin Xian had a feeling before. The perpetrators were skilled and should have committed the crime more than once. So, will this cult use murder to make money? Why did Lin Xian reason like this? Because when they were investigating the case, they did not encounter being followed. Instead, they found the church and popped up one by one. They were not worried about the case being exposed. Are they worried about the cult being exposed? It turns out that I didn't alert the snake. Lin Xian smiled and murmured, but poked a hornet's nest. What are the consequences of poking a hornet's nest? A group of hornets will come to sting you and sting you to death. In order to protect their nest. So, you're going to do it soon. Lin Xian smiled and took out a cigarette. While smoking, he strolled down the street. Suddenly, a person walked past him. A woman's hand reached into his pocket. She took out his wallet. Lin Xian's expression was calm. The woman walked past him. Suddenly, the wallet fell to the ground. At this time, Lin Xian looked at the wallet. The woman looked at him. She quickly picked up the wallet and ran away. Lin Xian laughed in his heart and chased after her. But he didn't catch her, and chased slowly. Until the woman ran into a street. Run into a Muay Thai gym. Lin Xian smiled and shook his head and walked in. It's very troublesome to pull out my 40-meter sword and put it back. I hope you can let me have fun. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun. Chapter 375. Lin Xian followed the woman and walked into the Muay Thai gym. Suddenly, the door behind him was closed. A rolling shutter door also slowly fell. Lin Xian stopped, feeling quite amused, and looked around. The facility is fully equipped with sandbags, boxing rings, fitness equipment, etc. This is not the point. The key point is that a group of fierce men are surrounding him. The woman who stole Lin Xian's wallet was standing in the distance and looking at him coldly. A ferocious smile appeared on his face, and murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Lin Xian ignored the big men around him and looked at the woman. You want to kill me? Yes. The woman sneered and nodded. Sir, he told us that we are in the darkness to save the people in the darkness, and anyone who stops us from running towards the light is an enemy. Don't you deserve to die? Sir, Lin Xian stared into the woman's eyes. I found that the other party's eyes were so enthusiastic when he was talking about this, sir. Like a devout believer, even better like an obedient dog. What about you? Lin Xian looked at the strong men around him. There were 11 of them in total. You want to kill me too? Ha ha. These ferocious strong men laughed wildly, their expressions even more ferocious. It's a pity. Lin Xian deliberately said humorously, you don't cherish the opportunity given to you. I cherish your mother, Hummer. A big man jumped up instantly. A standard Muay Thai knee hit Lin Xian's head. The world suddenly became slow and laggy. Lin Xian looked at the strong man who was moving slowly. His eyes are gradually losing their liveliness and becoming emotionless. There is only numbness, disregard for life, and coldness. As cold as ice. Bang! A punch hit the knee that was kicked from the air. There was a muffled sound, accompanied by the sound of broken bones. The big man who rushed towards him seemed to have been hit by a car. His leg was broken by Lin Xian's punch and he flew out. Facing this scene, everyone was dumbfounded. Some people forget to breathe. Lin Xian moved. The moment the strong man flew out, he stood in front of two strong men. The first second. Click. His hands were like two knives, slashing on the necks of the two strong men. He walked between the two of them. Sudden. The heads of the two strong men actually drooped down, as if they had no necks. Both heads were drooped behind their backs, eyes staring with blank expressions. Before the body fell. The second. Lin Xian stood in front of the two strong men again, and placed his hands on their heads. Move your arms and bring your palms together toward the middle. Bang, click. The two heads collided together, the brain bones shattered and blood splattered everywhere. Obviously, only half of the two heads are left. The third second. Lin Xian moved while strolling in the courtyard. Click. His hands crushed both necks. The fourth second. Lin Xian pulled out his gun. Bang, 4 shots per second. 4 headshots. The fifth second. Lin Xian stood in front of the woman. Bang, pull the trigger. In front of the woman, he shot the first man flying and shot him in the head. Then, Lin Xian inserted the hot barrel of the gun into the woman's open mouth. You were so awesome just now. Lin Xian smiled, don't you think you're afraid of death? Woman. The blood on his face disappeared instantly, and his already widened eyes were filled with fear. Not only did he shiver, his body also shook like chaff. For the first time in her life, a woman found that death was so close to her. The smell of urine appeared and I was so scared that I became incontinent. So you are also afraid? Lin Xian stretched out his hand and slapped her face gently. Why do you want to die? Isn't it nice to live? Snapped. A slap broke half of the woman's teeth, pierced her eardrum, and slapped her to the ground. A mouthful of blood and teeth erupted from her mouth. The woman's body was shaking involuntarily, and her eyes were filled with fear and helplessness. She could do nothing but wet her pants and tremble. Lin Xian slowly squatted down, raised the pistol, and pressed it against the woman's leg. Tell me, who asked you to kill me? The woman didn't dare to move, staring straight at Lin Xian with frightened eyes. Boom! The woman's knees were shattered by bullets. But before she could scream, bang, the knee of the other thigh was shot through again. The painful screams were stuck in the throat due to even more heartbreaking pain. She opened her mouth wide and made a weird sound of cough, cough, cough. I was so stunned that I couldn't scream. Is he the gentleman you call me? Lin Xian moved his palm, and the barrel of the gun slid slightly from the woman's body and fell on the woman's arm. Aren't you going to tell me? No, I said. The woman howled and shouted, like a scream, it's sir, he asked me to kill you. Us. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. Are all the police officers who investigated the murder case? It was indeed wiped out. Except for a 5-year-old child, basically everyone died. Yes. The woman wailed and shouted in pain. As long as we investigate that case, the key point is that everyone who has been to the church must be killed. Church? Lin Xian's face suddenly froze. Is it really a cult? It was the same as he reasoned. If the police only investigated the case, those people would not care at all. Because they were confident that the police would not find anything. But when they found the church, they started to get nervous. Because those people were trying their best to hide a cult. They didn't want people to know. So anyone who found the church, the police involved in this case, they would kill them, is that right? Are you from the church? Lin Xian asked coldly. The woman turned pale and shook her head frantically. Who is that person? What is the cult? Lin Xian stared into the woman's eyes. The result. Although the woman was horrified, she kept silent. It seemed that there was something more terrible than a pistol and bullets. Huh? Lin Xian was surprised. Can't you say it? The woman nodded frantically. If I say it, will I die? Lin Xian's face began to solemn, and he thought of something. Do you remember how the old woman died? She was talking and suddenly died. It felt like she was a robot, and someone had set a certain program for her. As long as you say something, you will die suddenly. Old Qian also said that. There is a way to kill people that can deceive the human brain and body. It can make the human body enter a state. For example, it can make the human heart stop instantly. Is it psychological induction? Lin Xian stared at the woman. You are all subjected to this psychological induction. As long as you tell some secrets, you will die, and you have also seen this kind of death with your own eyes. Am I right? The woman nodded frantically. Lin Xian guessed it right. It's not that she didn't want to say it, but some words just need to be said. The woman is likely to die on the spot. That weird killing method is too scary. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun. Chapter 376. Lin Xian looked at the woman in front of him coldly and held up his mobile phone. Listen to Zhou Lai's report. Just now, Wang Meng and others were attacked and assassinated. Even Zhao Qiang almost encountered a car accident. After Zhou Lai finished his report, he smiled and said, "Did you offend the terrorists?" His tone was quite relaxed. In Taiko's eyes, the fighting and killing of ordinary people is no different from the fighting of ants. Even if terrorists do appear, they do not need to appear. Can a cannon kill mosquitoes? It's not a terrorist, it's a cult. Lin Xian's words were concise and to the point. I have troubled Tico during this period. I owe you a favor. It means to let Teek's people continue to protect Wang Meng, Zhao Qiang, and the others. No problem. Zhou Lai's tone was a little excited. Lin Xian's favor can be obtained by anyone? Just protecting a few ordinary people, that's nothing. Make a lot of money. A few minutes later, a group of special police officers arrived at the scene and sealed off the Muay Thai gym. Lu Yan arrived with a few people in white shirts, and her mouth twitched when she saw the corpses on the ground. How cruel! But based on the position of the body at the scene, these veteran criminal investigators were able to infer that Lin Xian was attacked. There is nothing wrong with killing the attacker on the spot. This is Lin Xian, replaced by other ordinary police officers. Most likely he has died in the line of duty. But things were still too big. 11 lives, still in the capital. They had to come. The boss's phone number. Lu Yan handed the phone to Lin Xian with a hint in her eyes. Tell my little brother that the minister is not in a good mood. Hello, minister. Taking the phone, Lin Xian asked with a smile, I heard that you are not in a good mood. Lu Yan, convex. Shit, betray me? The person on the other side was speechless. After a while, the old man smiled and asked, what's going on? Lin Xian said 2 words, here. The old man fell silent for a moment. Not only him, but Lu Yan and others at the scene also changed their expressions. Is there anyone who doesn't know how harmful an organization like a cult is? At some point, cults can be equated with terrorists. Must be severely punished and struck with thunder. Kill less. The minister warned, this is the capital, not a foreign country. Clear. Lin Xian returned the phone to Lu Yan. About half an hour later, Mr. Qian was invited again. Sorry to trouble you, Lin Xian himself was embarrassed. But money always really gives face. Lin Xian is bound to attend as long as he makes a phone call. Are you still polite to me? Qian Lao patted Lin Xian's shoulder and looked at the woman lying on the ground. Is it her? Right. Lin Xian nodded. I'm a little scared of the other party's killing methods. Mainly because it's so weird. What are you afraid of? Qian Lao smiled and shook his head. Whether it's hypnosis or psychological induction, it's not as scary as you think. Isn't that scary? Lin Xian rolled his eyes. Qian Lao knelt down and looked at the woman in front of him who was as pale as a quail and shivering. I observed it carefully for a long time and asked some questions. The woman also answered honestly. Time passed slowly, and in the blink of an eye it was 2 hours. Sudden. Mr. Qian made a strange gesture. The woman suddenly closed her eyes and fell asleep. Everyone's expressions changed. He looked at Mr. Qian and then at the woman. There is only one possibility. Mr. Qian's face was solemn. The other party used a method similar to instant hypnosis. Instant hypnosis is a professional term, also called rapid hypnosis. It refers to putting the subject into a hypnotic state in a very short period of time. Lin Xian was stunned. Mr. Qian once told him about instant hypnosis. It refers to a type of people who have been under hypnosis for a long time, and their brains have produced some kind of memory. When the subject sees a specific hypnotic method, he will fall into a hypnotic state. To be honest, instant hypnosis is only effective for those subjects who have been hypnotized for a long time and often. It is completely ineffective for people who have never experienced hypnosis. General hypnotists or psychological inducers would never do this. Qian Lao looked at the sleeping woman with a more solemn expression. It's like installing a virus in a computer, or leaving a backdoor in the computer. As long as a specific scene is triggered, the virus and backdoor will appear. Is instant hypnosis forbidden? Lin Xian pretended to be surprised. But I already have the answer in my heart. Nonsense. Mr. Qian rolled his eyes. This means that a hypnotist can control the patient anytime and anywhere. It is illegal to perform the technique without consent. Now, isn't there someone breaking the law? Lin Xian said solemnly. How did you do it? For example, when we speak, when we say certain words, it will trigger thinking reactions and induce brain memory. Mr. Qian smiled and said, for example, what did you eat this morning? What did you eat this morning? Lin Xian was stunned. Start to remember unconsciously. Suddenly, his expression changed. At that moment, his thinking was induced by Mr. Qian. This is induction, do you understand? Qian Lao said with a smile, as long as certain words are said, it will inevitably guide a person's thinking and trigger the brain's memory. The same principle applies to instant hypnosis. First, let a person get used to being hypnotized. When you use specific gestures, words, props, scenes, you can induce the brain of the subject, let the subject habitually enter the hypnotic state, and turn the habit into nature. This woman's thinking psychology is very likely to be preset with such a psychological backdoor. As long as she says something special, the psychological backdoor will open. As for what kind of consequences will be caused, I don't know, only the caster knows. If according to what you just said, it must be a psychological induction that causes human death. Mr. Qian continued, just like what I told you in the past, when I hypnotized you, let you mistakenly thought you were drowning. If you can't wake up from the hypnotic state, then I'm dead, Lin Xian silently complained. To put it bluntly, this way of killing is only useful for people who have been hypnotized or psychologically induced for a long time. Yes, that's what I mean. Old Qian nodded, so there's no need to worry about anything. People who don't actively cooperate and have been hypnotized or psychologically induced for a long time don't need to be afraid of hypnotists and psychological inducers at all. The kind of hypnotizing people with a snap of fingers in an instant, or killing people with a few words, is magic, movies, and supernatural. It doesn't exist in reality at all. Lin Xian nodded slightly, looking thoughtful. In other words, whether it's the woman in front of him or the old woman, they have been psychologically induced by someone for a long time, similar to brainwashing. They are asking for death, and someone has actively put a bug in their mind. Lin Xian pointed at the woman, can you still interrogate? It's better not. Old Qian shook his head, I can't crack it for the time being. It's troublesome, Lin Xian has a headache. But it doesn't matter. Now that we have caught some minions, we just need to follow the clues. Some people can no longer hide. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun. Chapter 377. In the courtyard of a certain branch, a group of people were squatting on the ground in handcuffs. These people are both male and female. All of them were criminals who assassinated and attacked Wang Meng and others. Continuous questioning followed, but some sensitive topics were avoided. Lin Xian is worried about whether there will be a psychological trap left in these people. If touched, it is likely to cause death. Even so, he still asks something. Confirmed, these people are all cult members. Through interrogation, some things were also asked that made everyone look ugly. The number of believers in this cult is beyond imagination. The scariest thing is that they are not just targeting ordinary people. They also targeted and brainwashed some rich, powerful people. No one knows the exact number of people in the cult. Only Sir knows. What is certain is that the cult has more than 1,000 followers in the capital alone. Lin Xian's head got bigger. It's not just 1,000 people. There is a person who is good at psychological induction and has completely controlled them. He can also command his followers to kill people. Suppose this sir goes crazy and gathers thousands of people. Indiscriminate destruction, attacks, or killings in the capital. Think about that scene. Isn't it scary? Fortunately, these believers were captured and through interrogation, too many clues were discovered. A joint arrest operation by the Beijing police begins. Countless cultists were arrested, interrogated, pulled out carrots and brought out of the mud, and the arrests continued. In the blink of an eye, more than 700 people were arrested in 2 days. But there are still more people who have not been arrested, and there are still more cultists hiding among the people. And there are cultists not only in the capital, but also in many provinces and cities. The leaders of the Ministry of Public Security could not sit still and were personally guided and directed by a deputy minister. A nationwide campaign of arrests, raids, and extermination began. This kind of thing has nothing to do with the severe Special Criminal Case Task Force. They are trying their best to find the sir. On the third day, Mr. Qian gave good news. Do you still remember the priest Lin Qian met at the beginning? He is also a cultist. Through Qian Lao's hypnosis, someone's psychological induction technique was cracked. Asked for some key confessions. In a special room. The priest was lying on a bed, seemingly asleep. In fact, he is in a deep hypnotic state. Lin Qian looked away and looked at Mr. Qian. Just ask. Qian Lao's eyes showed exhaustion. Who is sir? Lin Qian looked at the priest. I am not sure. The priest murmured, I have never seen sir. Every time he appears, he wears a mask on his face. No name. No, he asked us to call him sir, and we all called him sir. What religion do you teach? New world, Mr. said that we will create a new world. We are all part of the new world. We must subvert the old world and let the new world come. Who are the people in your sect? There are everyone, workers, students, farmers, killers. Where did you meet this gentleman in the past? I have no idea. Have no idea. Yes, because every time we go to that place, there will be someone to pick us up. We will wear hoods and earplugs. We can't see or hear. We are only allowed to take off the hoods and earplugs after we arrive at the location. The place you are going to is big. It's very big, like a huge factory that can accommodate 1,000 people. You haven't been out? No, after we meet Mr. and listen to Mr. S. sermon, he will put on the headgear and earplugs again and leave. Then we will be sent back to the place where we were picked up. Where is the pickup and drop-off location? There is a pig farm outside the 6th Ring Road. This is the place I went to on my own. I don't know where other people pick up and drop off. Are the deaths of Zhang Yantao, her son, daughter-in-law, and Cao Xian related to you? Yes. What did you do to her family? I just used Zhang Jiatao's religious belief to briefly brainwash her. Later, my husband pretended to be a bishop and used psychological induction techniques on Zhang Jiantao. I don't know what he did to her and her family. As expected, Lin Qian had a dark face. It's certain now. The deaths of old women Zhang Yantao, Lu Bo, Jian Yunding, Cao Xian, and others were all related to the cult. It was the sir who personally planned it. The 5-year-old boy was also psychologically induced by the sir himself. The purpose, money. The entire case has generally come to light. The root of everything is the cult, which is caused by the sir. At the same time, it also confirmed Lin Qian's premonition. This case is beyond imagination. It's no longer just a matter of killing a family, but a cult is involved. A dragon kingdom hidden by a huge cult. Nearly 1,000 people have been arrested in the capital. It's just the tip of the iceberg. There are still many cultists across the country. No one knows exactly how many followers this cult has. As for Sir, every time he appears, he wears a mask. No one knows who he is. Those believers didn't know whether the Sir they saw was true or false. Even if the Sir is in the capital or in the Dragon Kingdom. Again, no one knows. What should I do? Lin Xian's head is completely enlarged. Check, definitely check. In the end, there is a high probability that this cult will be destroyed. The problem is that it takes a lot of time. Where does the Special Criminal Case Task Force have time to spend on this? If you just let it go, I won't be willing to do it. Actually, you don't have to keep an eye on this cult. Qian Lao looked at Lin Xian with a gloomy face and said with a smile, "Did you forget one thing, the psychological induction technique?" Lin Xian was stunned for a moment, and his eyes suddenly lit up. Bang, slap on the forehead. It was me who found myself in a dead end. What an idiot. What did he think of? To use a metaphor. How many hypnotists are there in the Dragon Kingdom? In 2016, there were more than 1.3 billion people and less than 1,000 people could be called hypnotists. There are even fewer hypnotists who can really help people solve problems and are good at hypnosis. What about the psychological counselor? He. There are less than 1/3 of the number of hypnotists, and the circle is pitifully small. The total number of psychological counselors in the country is less than 300. Whatever skills a person wants to master do not appear out of thin air. It's like hypnosis. There is a teacher here. Do you think that humans can hypnotize people, even if they are not humans? Stop dreaming. Where did Sir's psychological induction technique come from? Possibly self-taught. This ability is absolutely impossible. Just check the circle of psychological counselors. Has the answer come out? Lin Xian looked at Qian Lao with a smile and extended his thumb. Ginger is indeed very spicy. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Qiseung Zhong. Chapter 378. Beijing, Psychological Induction Association. Founded in 1971, it is an association mainly composed of domestic psychological induction professionals. It is divided into two schools, traditional psychological induction and postmodern psychological induction. It also provides psychological induction training and promotion. It awards qualified students with psychological induction certificates and psychotherapist certificates. The number of members of the Psychological Induction Association has exceeded 300. Members are distributed in provinces and cities across the country. Lin Xian looked at the Psychological Induction Association in front of him with a strange expression. The 5-story building looks pitifully small. Thinking of the number of members of the Psychological Induction Association. It is also pitifully small. But the reality is cruel. Just like hypnosis, not everyone can become a hypnotist. Similarly, not everyone can become a psychological induction. Some talents are rarer than giant pandas. Lin Xian walked into the door and saw two girls chatting at the front desk. Seeing a handsome guy, the eyes of the two girls became as bright as searchlights. "Handsome guy, have we met somewhere before?" A very lively and cheerful girl smiled at Lin Xian. "Miss, your pickup routine is too low, isn't it?" Lin Xian said seriously, "Sorry, I have a wife at home, no appointment." Haha. Both girls laughed at Lin Xian. The other girl asked with a smile, "Do you have something to do?" "Yes." Lin Xian nodded. "Is your association president here?" "Yes." The lively girl nodded. "That's good." Lin Xian took out his police officer ID. "Police, please lead the way, there is a case that requires your president to assist in the investigation." The two girls stopped laughing. 5th floor. Office of the President of the Psychological Guidance Association. The girl opened the door, Lin Xian walked in, and saw a middle-aged man. The other person was of medium build and well proportioned. He was neither bloated nor thin, and had a gentle smile on his face. "Hello." The middle-aged man stood up, walked up quickly, and extended his hand. "Hello." Lin Xian shook hands with him. "No need to introduce yourself, right?" "No, no." The middle-aged man smiled, without any airs of the president. "Please take a seat." The two sat down. "What's your name?" Lin Xian asked with a smile. "No need, Su Wanjiang." The middle-aged man smiled and asked, "What can I do for you?" Lin Xian did not hide his intention, and explained his purpose. "I want to find someone who is good at psychological induction, a master. I want to ask how many such people there are in your association." "There are 300 people who are good at psychological induction in the country." "How many masters can there be? Can I ask?" Su Wanjiang frowned slightly. "Are you looking for a master-level psychological induction master because it involves some criminal cases?" "Yes." Lin Xian nodded. "A big case, not only involving murder, but also involving cults, and even involving multiple crimes. By the way, the reason why I say this person is very powerful is that 15 years ago, he was probably a master-level psychological induction master. The reason why it was 15 years ago is because of the police investigation. The New World cult has existed for 15 years. Su Wanjiang's gentle smile froze on his face. He was a master 15 years ago. "Why, what's wrong?" Lin Xian stared at the other person's eyes and observed his expression. "Nothing." Su Wanjiang shook his head slightly. "I'm just a little surprised, because 15 years ago, there were too few members of our association who could have master-level abilities. Even now, there are not many, and there have never been more than 10 people. This is not a joke. There are few psychological inducers, and even fewer masters. In your impression, are there any psychological inducers who may have committed crimes?" Lin Xian looked at him meaningfully. "For example, this person has a bad heart, has done something bad, has violated industry rules, and deliberately induced others to do something. By the way, is he the kind of person who is likely to be involved in a cult?" "This." Su Wanjiang glanced at Lin Xian with a bit of a pained expression. "Who can remember clearly what happened 15 years ago?" "Can't remember, or don't want to say." Lin Xian's face sank, and his eyes became sharp. How come this person changes his attitude faster than turning the pages of a book? Su Wanjiang's heart trembled, and a thin layer of sweat broke out on his back. "I seem to remember such a person." "Oh." Lin Xian asked with a smile. "What's his name?" "Shiji." Su Wanjiang seemed to be recalling something. "I should say he is a genius, he learns everything very quickly. Because he is a genius, his ideas are very different from others. Psychological induction was developed mainly to treat some patients and help some patients, all of which are positive. But the views proposed by Shiji are a bit strange, and many of us think they are a bit evil." "What do you mean?" Lin Xian's eyes sparkled. "We study psychological induction and use psychological induction to save people and cure diseases." Su Wanjiang sighed. "Shiji studies psychological induction, specializing in how to control human psychology and human behavior. To put it bluntly, he went astray. The old president felt that his mind was not right, so he let him graduate. You can also say that he was kicked out of the Psychological Induction Association. Since then, we have not seen Shiji again. However, the Shiji I am talking about is not the 15 years ago you mentioned, but 13 years ago. But his ability is indeed at the master level." "Shiji." Lin Xian narrowed his eyes slightly. "How old was he at that time?" "It seems that he was only 25 years old." Su Wanjiang thought for a while. "By the way, he was still a graduate student in psychology at a certain college." "What school?" Lin Xian was curious. Su Wanjiang said the name of a college in Beijing. As a result, Lin Xian was stunned. Because that college was exactly where Mr. Qian was. He was still studying psychology, Could he be Mr. Qian's student? Lin Qian was stunned for a long time, took out his cell phone and called Qian Lao. Qian Lao, I want to ask you about someone. 13 years ago, did you know a graduate student named Shiji? As a result, there was no sound from Qian Lao. Lin Qian's mind moved, something was wrong. Qian Lao knew this person? Otherwise, it would not be this reaction. Remember I mentioned to you that you have a senior brother. After a long time, Qian Lao spoke in a deep voice, his name is Shiji. Is it so bloody? Lin Qian was stunned. Here it comes, the bloody plot of the novel is coming to me. Then, he remembered what Qian Lao had said to him. One of Qian Lao's disciples once put forward a point of view. It almost changed Qian Lao's thinking and fell into being induced. At that time, Lin Qian had the idea of killing and felt that this person could not be kept. But Qian Lao said that this disciple was dead, died in the mountains. Could it be him? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun. Chapter 379. A duel between a senior and a junior? Lin Qian felt like he was reading a melodramatic novel and had his face splashed with melodrama. After ending the call with Mr. Qian, Lin Qian called Zhan Xiaoyang. Check a man named Shiji, and see how he died. The investigation report on Shiji was quickly transmitted to Lin Qian's mobile phone. Shiji, 28 years old, died in 2006, a Beijing native. Died in the mountains, his body was completely eaten by wild beasts. Only a finger bone, clothes, mountaineering bags, and other items were left. After the on-site inspection, it was confirmed that Shiji was attacked by wild beasts and died, and his body was eaten by many kinds of wild beasts. Only one finger bone is left. Lin Qian put down his mobile phone expressionlessly and murmured, "Is he really dead? He has been in contact with too many cases and has seen many strange events. Not to mention finding only one finger bone, even if a body is found. As long as Lin Qian has not seen it with his own eyes, he will doubt whether this person is really dead. Even if you see it with your own eyes, you may still suspect that it is a stand-in. After all, Lin Qian saw someone playing a stand-in with his own eyes. So, is Shiji really dead? But after all, it happened more than 10 years ago, and it is impossible to verify the cause of death." Lin Qian stood up and smiled to Su Wanjiang, "Thank you for your cooperation, goodbye." "Okay." Su Wanjiang stood up to see him off. When the two just walked out of the office door, suddenly, Lin Qian was stunned and stopped. Killing intent, one after another, appeared in the building of the Psychological Guidance Association. Who could they be? After being stunned for 3 seconds, Lin Qian's eyebrows suddenly jumped. Something is wrong. If they are from the cult, how do they know that I came to the Psychological Guidance Association? Besides, how can people from the cult have this kind of murderous aura? Not ordinary people, not killers, and not mercenaries. Lin Qian listened carefully and heard some footsteps. His face became even weirder. What's wrong? Su Wanjiang looked at the stunned Lin Qian, a little puzzled. Why didn't he leave? Lin Qian not only didn't leave, but also raised his arm and pushed gently. Pushed Su Wanjiang into the office. Told him, hide. Su Wanjiang was a little confused. He hid behind the desk obediently. Lin Qian returned to the room, closed the door, and continued to listen to the noise outside. The footsteps of the 5 people were very light, but they could not escape his ears. They were quietly approaching the office and walking in the corridor. Until, they appeared at the door. One person raised his thigh and was about to kick the door. Suddenly, bang! A fist punched through the door and grabbed a neck. Before the people outside the door could react. Bang, the door exploded. Lin Xian appeared in the corridor and waved his arm. The person whose neck he held slammed hard on the two people on the left. Lin Xian stretched out his hands and grabbed the necks of the two people on the right. Bang, two heads collided. Two young men collapsed to the ground. No, 5 people fell to the ground. These people were holding the same machete, and all of them had short hair. They were all young men in their 20s. You can feel the ferocity and murderous aura in them. It seems that they are a group of specially trained killers. No. Lin Xian looked at them coldly. Or, is this a killing tool specially cultivated by a certain organization? Cult members. At this time, 3 of the 5 people were in a coma, and the other 2 were awake. They actually jumped up at the first time. But they didn't run away. One person waved a machete and slashed at Lin Xian's neck. One person raised his hand and stabbed, using the front end of the machete to stab Lin Xian's lower abdomen. They gave people a crazy feeling, and they were fearless. Are they really not afraid of death? Click. The 2 wrists holding the machetes were broken by Lin Xian. Grab 2 machetes. Puff, crack. A machete pierced through a young man's stomach. He lifted him up high and nailed him to the corridor wall. Lin Xian waved his arm, and another machete fell instantly. Crack. The second young man waved his hand to hit Lin Xian's fist. It was cut off by a knife. Ah! Blood splattered, and the young man screamed and retreated. Snap! His neck was grabbed by Lin Xian. Bang! Pressed against the wall. With a puff, the machete pierced through the young man's lower abdomen. Like his companion, he was nailed to the wall. Lin Xian let go. Looking at the 2 screaming young men hanging on the wall, and then looking at the blood splattered on his body, he frowned and muttered, "It's a pity for the set of clothes, I can't keep it." The 2 sisters at home hate the smell of blood the most. However, he has found that the 5 young men in front of him are obviously not right. Not only have they been trained, but their mental state is not very normal. The fierce performance just now was very crazy. Just like a mental patient. Excited and bloodthirsty, he has no mercy or fear when he wants to kill. This is a big problem. Who are you? Lin Xian asked, looking at the screaming youth. But they were only concerned with the pain and screaming, and did not answer. Lin Xian bent over. He picked up 2 machetes from the 3 unconscious youths on the ground. I don't want to repeat it a second time. Lin Xian looked at them. Who asked you to kill me? It was the sir, a young man screamed miserably. But another young man shouted angrily, Grass mud horse, you dare to betray the sir. The knife flashed, and before the young man finished scolding. Crack. His arm flew up and was chopped off directly. Ah! The young man stopped scolding, but fainted in pain. Painful incontinence. Lin Xian turned his head and looked at the other young man who was almost scared to death, smiling, continue. It was the sir, he asked us to come and kill people. The young man's eyes were full of fear and painful screams. Did you see him? No, it was the sir who called us. When did he call? The young man said a time. Lin Xian's eyes were half closed. This time happened to be when he came to the Psychological Guidance Association. Are they those 2 girls? Are they members of the cult? No, maybe not them. Lin Xian looked at the door that he had just smashed. He looked at Su Wanjiang who was hiding behind the office. It could be him. However, at this moment, Lin Xian's face changed again. There were footsteps coming from the stairwell. Those footsteps were very similar to the footsteps of the 5 young men who wanted to kill him just now. 10 seconds later, a group of young men with machetes rushed out of the stairwell not far away, and each of them was in a crazy mental state. Amid the crowd, The group of young men rushed towards Lin Xian. "Hello, is this 110? I want to call the police." Lin Xian's face was as calm as water, and his eyes were empty and numb. "Some people just like to die, what should I do?" Lin Xian, holding two knives, walked towards the group of young men with knives. "I want to step over ants without stepping on them to death. That force is very difficult to control. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet." Author, Kisiun. Chapter 380. Hack him to death. The young men who rushed forward shouted. Machetes were raised and chopped at Lin Xian. At this moment, the vision of the young men suddenly became hazy. Lin Xian's figure disappeared in an instant. It was not disappearance, but too fast. He bounced up like a cheetah and appeared in the air. Bang, his feet stepped on the two young men. Crack, two crisp sounds. He stepped on two heads. Two machetes flashing with silver light danced with Lin Xian's arms. With coldness and murderous aura, they fell on the bodies of young men. In the blink of an eye, even Lin Xian himself didn't know how many machetes he had swung. Every knife was so fierce, accurate, and cruel. Blood splashed in the air, and screams rang out one after another. Lin Xian's killing was too fast. So fast that these young people didn't even have time to shout, let alone dodge and escape. When Lin Xian walked through the corridor, a group of people were lying behind him, with limbs scattered all over the ground. The pungent smell of blood and the scarlet on the ground seemed to converge into a river. Except for the two people he trampled to death at the beginning, Lin Xian did not kill anyone. But these young people became disabled. The corridor was full of wailing and screaming. Lin Xian turned a deaf ear and suddenly turned around. He looked at the door not far away. And Su Wanjiang was peeking at something at the door. When he saw Lin Xian's cold eyes, he couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. He sat on the ground with his buttocks, as if he was paralyzed by fear. Lin Xian sneered, walked past those young people, and walked towards the other party step by step. Standing in front of Su Wanjiang, blinking, with a bit of mischief on his face, "Are you okay?" "No, I'm fine." Su Wanjiang shuddered all of a sudden, his face pale. "Are you really okay?" Lin Xian restrained his smile. "Huh." Su Wanjiang was a little confused, "What's wrong?" "Since it's okay, can you explain it to me?" Lin Xian asked casually, "Why did you want to kill me just now?" Su Wanjiang was stunned, and in a moment he was horrified and could not control himself. "To be honest, I was almost fooled by you." Lin Xian thought for a long time with a gloomy face, "You guys are really amazing. You can fool people without changing their pupils, expressions, and even their heartbeats. How do you do it? Did you misunderstand?" Su Wanjiang's eyes wandered, looking around. "Why would I want to kill you? Do you really think I didn't notice it?" Lin Xian pointed at the young men. "When they were about to kill me and I was fighting back, you secretly looked at me at the door, and your eyes were full of murderous intent. It was this look that made me sure that you had a problem." He squatted down slowly. Looking directly at Su Wanjiang's face, "You called all these people here, right?" Veins popped up on Su Wanjiang's forehead, as if he was enduring something, and he was about to refute. "So what you said to me before was also misleading me?" Lin Xian stared at him for a long time with his eyes calm. "Shiji, you must have killed him, right?" Instantly, Su Wanjiang could no longer control his expression, and looked stunned. It was as if he had seen a ghost. "You want to mislead me and let me check a dead person?" Lin Xian looked strange. "You want me to think that Shiji is the master of the cult? But if I really check, I probably won't be able to find it in this lifetime. After all, he has been dead for 10 years. Su Wanjiang's face was pale, and he didn't dare to breathe. His hands and feet were shaking slightly uncontrollably. "If you are really trying to trick me, Can I understand your words the other way around? Lin Xian's tone became cold. Shiji should not be good at psychological tricks, he just wants to learn psychological tricks. When he came to you, through learning, he found that you psychological tricks specialize in how to control human psychology and human behavior to do bad things. Maybe he discovered this, and then, he was controlled by you. You deliberately let him go to Mr. Qian and said some psychological tricks, making Qian Lao think he had taken the wrong path. He also deliberately used his mouth to tell Qian Lao that he was going to find the real world, the new world. As a result, he died in the mountains, and only one finger was left. What's interesting is that I remember you said that Shiji came to you 13 years ago, and the cult appeared 15 years ago. Lin Xian looked at Su Wanjiang's bloodless face, then can I suspect that he was killed to silence him because he discovered your cult? Is this reasoning valid? Su Wanjiang's legs were no longer under his control. Because of fear, he was shaking like a sieve. I have calculated everything and all kinds of reasoning, but I have never thought of it. Lin Xian slowly stood up, raised his head boredly, and laughed at himself. Is the entire Psychological Guidance Association the birthplace of the cult? Su Wanjiang forgot to breathe. At this moment, the way he looked at Lin Xian was indeed like looking at a ghost. It was so incredible and so incomprehensible. The look and expression seemed to be saying, how could there be such a strange creature in this world? Tell me, sir, who is it? Lin Xian slowly lowered his head and looked at the other person. As a result, he saw a strange face. Su Wanjiang's eyes were looking at him without blinking. But there was no luster in his eyes. There was no breathing, and no heartbeat. He just died like this, and his death was very strange. Lin Xian was not surprised at all. Because he had learned something like instant hypnosis and psychological backdoor from Mr. Qian. When certain specific requirements appear, the psychological backdoor can be activated. Lin Xian calmly looked at Su Wanjiang, who had no breath. The Psychological Induction Association is a cult, a psychological induction switch. As long as you say it, or someone else says it, you will die when you hear the sentence, right? Unfortunately, Su Wanjiang could not answer him. Leaning against the door frame motionlessly, his body was gradually getting colder. Lin Xian stood up and walked towards the corridor. As he walked, he took out his cell phone, made a call, and ordered, arrest all members of the Psychological Guidance Association. Just as Lin Xian walked to the stairwell and prepared to go downstairs. Suddenly, his expression froze. His face became stiff, and he murmured woodenly, how is it possible? What did he find? Lin Xian actually heard a dead person's heartbeat. How could a dead person have a heartbeat? He saw with his own eyes that person had no breath and no heartbeat. But this dead person is alive.